We're recording, we're live. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that we have lots of fun today. As Danielle said, feel free to interrupt us at any moment. Your questions are going to make this session work best. Who am I? Why am I here? What am I showing you? So I work with Digital Moment. Maybe you've heard from us as Kids Code Jeunesse, but then we moved to Digital Moment. We're an organization that has presence all throughout Canada. And what we do is that we teach teachers and students about digital technologies, how to interact with new technologies using digital tools. Let me share my screen and then I can tell you who am I and what are we doing. So let me share the screen and we'll get started. Perfect. So this is Digital Moment. This is our logo. That's who we are. You can reach out after this session at any moment, and I'll be happy to support in any way with questions that you have or different sessions. We'll do a little bit of a commercial later on, and I'll be sharing the slides for you. So everything you're going to see here, you're going to have access to all the links, everything that is there. What are we talking about? What am I bringing you today? Is that we're going to talk about AI in education, and I want to tie AI in education to some resources that we've been working on and that we've been sharing with educators throughout Canada. And I want to tie that to Quebec's educational, ethical, and legal use of generative AI. A great document that I find very empowering for the rest of the provinces to emulate and to accommodate and to help. My name is Germán Arcila. I work for Digital Moment. I've been working with Digital Moment for about 6, 7 years now, since it was Kids Cojunettes. We've done through the transition of going first to schools every day. I was going to a different school, teaching microbits and Scratch. And then we've made the transition. I started teaching artificial intelligence in different forms about 6 years ago, where when nobody cared about AI because it was this obscure thing and what are we going to do? But now it exploded and it took a different meaning, a different depth, a different sense. My background is in business, education, and computer science. All those things I enjoy a lot, things that I work with, and I hope that what I'm presenting to you today makes sense and is helpful for you to make decisions and have tools and resources that are going to be easy to incorporate in your practice. Digital Moment is a non-profit. Therefore, I'm going to be sharing an evaluation link because our currency is surveys. I want to know what you think of what we're doing. What do you want to see? And I want to learn a little bit more about you. I'll be sharing those later on. Let's continue. What are we looking at today? I want to touch on 4 key points. We're going to do a recap of something that you already know. So I'm not going to go deep because I know you know it better. You experienced this in Quebec. And is what is the recap of this AI framework for education? This guide for teaching staff, what can we glean from there? What are some key elements? Then we're going to see what we consider are the 3 stages of incorporating and bringing AI into the classroom from K to 12. So we have the document, we understand the key elements. We're going to see what are the stages for me to bring AI following those guidelines, and I'll demonstrate after classroom-ready materials that your school, your board, or you as an independent teacher can start using to present AI to your students. And most importantly, for you as an educator to understand AI at a different level so you can bring it and support your students. And we're going to finish by me trying to align what we see in this framework with the resources that I'm going to present. Let's get started. We have objectives, we have presentation. You know who I am. Let's get going. The first thing, we're going to take a look at the key elements. This is the document. The link is here on the presentation. You can click. Most likely you've seen it. And what I want to see is let's extract the key elements. There are 5 elements, 2 general that cover the whole interaction and presentation of AI, and 2 and 3 very specific. The first one is how can we continue supporting a human-centric approach while introducing AI? making sure that our students are learning, they're doing this with others so they learn how to interact and work in teams, and how are we getting them ready for the future that face them. So that's a key aspect that covers the whole document, and we're going to explore ways that we can do this with the material I'm presenting. The second one, it's limited to saying to encourage teachers to exercise critical judgment and to present autonomy. I like to expand that to students in terms of critical thinking for teachers and students, and autonomy, being able to understand and do things on their own, not only for the teachers, but for the educators. Then there are the three key topics that now they're very precise is pedagogical relevance. Why and how can this work for me and for my students and my curriculum? The second one, what are the ethical principles that we need to consider, that we need to discuss, that we need to interact with, so that we can present information that is relevant for building the ethical concept and framework for our students and for us as educators also, because now we're faced with something that is fairly new because of the scale and the pace that it has. And the last part, legal obligations. Are we doing the right thing? Are we going to get in trouble? How can we protect ourselves? How can we protect our students, their families, and our communities? So those are the key elements. And I'm going to take a look at the pedagogical relevance, the ethical part, and the legal side, just with key ideas that we're going to touch on with the resources I'm sharing later on. If we're talking about pedagogical relevance, then we need to think, are we making sure that we're educating both our teachers and our students? How can we achieve that? Why is this process for both? And the main reason is that it's because it's very new and it's evolving very fast. As teachers, we learn as we teach, but we need to try and need to keep and try to be ahead of the process and the information. This one is one that I've seen already personally with many professionals in different fields and with many students. Does it motivate and teach? Can I learn by using AI? That's an interesting concept. The one that I like to focus, can I be motivated? Can my students be motivated to keep on learning despite of the existence of AI? How can we approach and tackle that so that us and our students want to keep learning some fundamental concepts that we can just type and get the answer to? How do we bypass that? How do we keep the human in the loop? Does it have a clear purpose for learners? Does it satisfy your objectives, your curriculum, the things you're trying to teach? And does it have a purpose for teachers? Is this just a gimmick that feels like a gimmick for you to introduce? Is it creating more work than what you're getting for? Then we're going to explore this directly and also with the message and the topics that Chris is covering in the second part. So that's the pedagogical side. Let's take a look at the ethical principles. Digital sobriety. Are we making sure that this technology we're using in a way that is safe long term for the planet? What is the energy consumption? How are we cooling it today? How are we going to produce that energy? How much energy are we going to need in the future? How are we going to cool those servers? Is that sustainable? Is this a technological or technical solution? Is something that we should address as individuals and as a community. And also, something key that we've been dealing now for many years is the impact of our interaction with others because of these new technologies. We saw it with social media. How do we feel because of our interaction with social media? How it shapes our day and the way that we perceive and understand the world. How is this now being represented with artificial intelligence? Quality. AI seems confident in the answers it provides, but is it truthful? So that's a key part, a key element that is one of the first things that we need to unify as educators and students. Equity and inclusion, there are biases in AI. We know they exist. How can we learn about those? Why is it important that it amplifies the biases that society has? And how can we make use of that information to create better systems in the future and to better understand and react to these answers that we're getting from these AI agents? Transparency and explainability. How can we ensure that we acknowledge that we're using the AI, and when do we that? When do we do that? How do we do it? And how can we ask and seek for ways to provide explainability within these models? We've heard the concept of black box. How can we explore that? Is it always a black box? Is there a way to have explainability within AI? How can we explore and understand? Agency is, can we do things that motivate us to keep doing, to learning, to be capable to understand what is right, what is wrong, how to check our sources, how to check our results? Pedagogical, ethical. Now, the last one, talking about the legal obligations within the framework and the document. Three key parts, really important: information security, prompts. Every prompt that we type on an LLM by default is public. But we might be saying, but in my organization, in my school, Copilot, Gemini provides something that says my information is not being used for training. That is correct, but is this the same case when you go home and you use any of these systems? Are you under that umbrella of your school or your enterprise account? Or are we using providing this information that we sometimes assume private as public? It tends to default to the same system that we use with the web, then with social media, is that everything we post on the internet is by default public. Protection of personal information, for us and for our students to know what information are we sharing when we use these systems, and how much are we willing to share? Is there something that we can do about? And copyright, then who owns what is being created? Who owns what was used to create these things? How are they being compensated or not? What do we think about these topics, and how should we proceed in the future? How can we ensure the things that are copyrighted or owned by someone, they're properly accredited or compensated? Okay, so we saw that idea. That's the framework. That was the first step in our objectives. Now what I want to show you is this graph that is a 4-piece triptych. I know it should be 3 pieces, but I kind of like the concept of having 4 because these two I want to present as one. The idea is AI in K to 12 as a 3-stage journey. What does it require for us to implement AI in our schools? First, we need to focus on the fundamentals. And that's why we have two, one for educators and one for students. What are the fundamentals is for us to understand what the technology is, what the technology is not. This, it seems simple, seems clear, it seems logical, but it's a very hard point to present, mostly because using the technology has no barriers, past having an internet connection. When you're learning how to use a CNC, a computer, a clock, a VCR, remember VCRs blinking on 12, 12, 12? That was hard to use. When we're using AI, we just type a question and we get an answer. So when you try to teach these fundamentals, and I found out the hard way with many teachers telling me, no, I know how this works. I know what is behind it. I know how to use it. Just go and tell me about the rest. We need to focus on understanding what it is, what is not. We'll see why and how can we do it. Then we're going to talk about teachers and quality of practice. how AI can make your life and your practice better. And by experimenting and making your life and practice better, you become more adept at understanding the technology. So we can go into the third step of bringing the technology in a meaningful way in the classroom. These, there are many experiments. We're trying many things, all of us that work really well. We're trying lots of things that are not working well. And I think that by doing more of these two steps, we're going to be better at this. Remember, you can interrupt me or ask questions at any moment because I can keep on going and going, but can I have just a thumbs up to know that everybody's awake? I see a thumbs up. Thank you. Great. Good. So we're awake, we're paying attention, we have these things. As I said, I'm going to focus on these two, going forward, talking about the materials. And then Chris is going to do an exciting and interactive part where he's going to present a lot about the quality of practice. There's lots of documentation and great things about all these parts. Let's talk about now the fundamentals. And the fundamentals is talking about classroom ready resources. Because we're sharing the links, you're going to have the link to Experience AI, which is the name of the program, the curriculum, the lessons, the ideas that we're going to bring so that this interaction, this learning becomes easier, interesting, and ready for you to deliver. The two parts that I want to present to give you peace of mind before we go and say, oh, Herman is bringing Experience AI. What is this? What do I need to do? How hard this is going to be? Who made this thing? Digital Moment does great things, but did they create this? In truth, this was created by the Raspberry Pi Foundation. Doesn't mean it requires Raspberry Pis at all. The Raspberry Pi Foundation and the Raspberry Pi branch that sells and creates the devices, they're separate. We're talking just about the foundation that does many things, among them creating great pedagogical resources. So they know about pedagogy, they know about digital literacy. And they work together with Google DeepMind, famous for AlphaFold, AlphaStar, AlphaGo, and all these AI systems with many AI professionals thinking about these challenges and creating solutions. So the Raspberry Pi Foundation presents the pedagogical concepts, and Google DeepMind presents the technical side. So they complement based on research, exploration, and iteration. They created these resources. And they had extra support by teachers at the Cambridge University to validate the things that they were doing, to have an extra check. And what is happening is that in Canada, Digital Moment is supporting every teacher that is interested in these resources in training and supporting their learning and their experience. And there are organizations like Digital Moment around the world deploying these in Romania, France, UK. There are many, many countries. I think there are over 11 or 12 right now that are going through this process. How much does it cost? It's offered at no cost. It's a Commons Creative License, and it can be used by anybody today. Start learning, using, presenting to your classrooms. I'll share at the end some of the testimonials of some of the teachers that have used it. How does this work? What does it include? What is in this? It offers free resources on machine learning and AI for teachers and students. Students age 11 to 14. That should kind of raise a bell for you because you might be saying, but we have this 13-year-old range and we have these issues. The beauty is that you're learning about AI and about the fundamentals. That's why we're in the first two stages without using ChatGPT, without using Copilot, without using Gemini. There are ways that you can emulate and experiment and understand what are the differences and what are the protocols and paths you should follow without using those systems. So that's the first thing that it offers. And the other one is that it includes, for you as a teacher, it's going to give you lesson plans, presentations, videos, simulations. It's going to give you worksheets. It's going to give you activities. It's going to give you a glossary. It's going to give video introductions to each one of the lessons. It's going to give videos that are student facing, and it's going to provide a framework, either a Simi or Bloom's taxonomy, things that are going to give you clarity on how to think about the material. So it's very well supported and very well resourced, and we're going to have a peek at it shortly. I just want to show you first what is there, and it comes in three different buckets. One bucket that covers the foundations of AI is the first one that was created, has 6 lessons. We're going to see them shortly. The second one is a newer one that came out this year regarding AI and safety. And we're going to see what are the 3 lessons and how this helps you and your students be more mindful about what we do AI and how to protect ourselves and how to protect others. And it has a series of lessons that tends to be growing, that's the idea, that are separate. One of them on large language models, LLMs. How do we use LLMs? What is the difference between an LLM and a Google search? When should we use one or the other? Or sorry, I should say maybe Bing search, any of the search engines. What are the differences? How can we think about them? When should we use one? When should we use the other? How can we use it so that it supports my learning without plagiarism and incurring into these other areas that we don't want to present? And the last one is an applied lesson for conservationists to learn to use AI in order to support their work. And this is done with images from a project created in Tanzania. And it's really interesting, but it's more of a very specific lesson presenting an idea of how to use AI now in the field and how it's helping people. What do we have in the foundations? The links are here, everything is there, but I want to show you the journey. The journey is that we start by saying, what is AI? What is this thing that I'm working with and it feels so familiar? Then how is this thing learning? Why is data so important? Why is my data part of it? Is my data part of it? How is it using this data? And what are some of the ways that the system uses data to understand or to create predictions and to create these answers that we see? The concept of bias. Where is the bias? How do we see the bias? I'll show you an activity on bias that I really like a lot, and I'll show you how it is presented and how can you bring the concept of bias within the classroom without talking about bias. Decision trees. We all know decision trees. Do we know them without AI? How do we influence explainability? How to solve problems using machine learning for organizations, for individuals. What considerations, ethical and technical, do we need to have? And we end with model cars. How are organizations trying to help other organizations and individuals know what to system use by understanding what data the system was trained on, how this works in technical terms, when it fails, where shouldn't we use it, and it ends by providing a broad scope of the different careers that our students can consider in order to go to AI. And the key part is that it's not only computer science, it's not only math sciences. There's a huge range of careers and opportunities. So that's foundations of AI. The lessons are created to go one after the other, but you don't have to. I've known many teachers that pick and choose because one of the things that I'm mindful and that is the most challenging for you, and you might be saying, this is a lot of time. And that's one of the things as educators we don't have is time in the classroom with our students. But we can pick and choose the things that matter the most that you find are going to have the biggest impact in your specific classroom. There's a school that we're working with in Northern Ontario, and the way they're doing it is that I have a teacher coordinating the lessons for elementary and for high school, and they're focusing on one, maximum 2 concepts per year. But they know that in the next year, the other teacher says, yeah, I'm going to pick it up from here. So they're presenting the things slowly and they're interacting with them. They had conversations with parents. They had surveys of understanding of AI before and after. Really interesting things that they're doing and break it into pieces. AI and safety, the new module. I'm going to show you a video a video later on how this works, but it covers your data and AI. I'll talk about this one a little bit more later because it's one I really like a lot. Then media literacy, misinformation, mistrust. How can we trust the sources we see? How do we help stop the propagation of misinformation or disinformation? Or how can we support the truth or the real truth by following through? And the last one, remember we were talking about the legal ramifications, how to use AI responsibly. And the last one, I talked already about the LLMs and ecosystems. Perfect. Whew, we made it here. We're going to take a look at the little exploration of what you're going to get when you go there and to see that this is made for all and how can you start thinking about this and including. Let me go back here. Let me slideshow. I just want to click on my link. There we go. So this is Experience AI. This is the main page. One thing that you will see, it says log out. So for educators, that's required for you to create an account. No cost. And I have not received yet one email telling me anything else or anything extra. There's a lot of information here. One of the things that I recommend for you is to maybe take a peek at the video that introduces this computer science student and how she explains the project. And she's an integral part in student-facing videos that is going to tie the lessons after lesson. She does interviews with different Google Mind, DeepMind professionals to learn about the concepts from the professionals themselves. But what I want to show you is this explore the lesson. So we have the three buckets, the foundations, AI safety, and the individual lessons. If we go to the resources and foundations of AI, this is the part that I want you to feel a little bit more comfortable. You might be saying, Herman is saying so many things. This seems like a lot of work, and I don't have the time or the knowledge. As I said, it provides a glossary of terms. So you can share this with your students, and it can help you in the process of learning and understanding the concepts. But more than that, each one of the lessons, no emojis, thank you, let's close that. We have a unit overview, which is going to go over every single unit and it's going to say, this is what you need to pay attention. This is the information that you're going to have. There's an educator guide. All these three are optional, and you have the learning graphs, as I said before, if you want to experiment, express, or know what system you're using. But what is most important is that these are the lessons. And all of them follow a similar pattern. We're going to take a look at one of them, part of it, the one that I was saying bias, bias in, bias out. Each lesson has a small sentence, the objectives, vocabulary, and the lesson structure. And it has a video telling you what you will see in the lesson, what is it that we're learning, what are the tools that we're using to do so. And you have, as I said before, lesson plans, worksheets, teacher support video. There's one activity in the slides that we're going to see that requires using machine learning for kids. So if you have never used it, you watch the video and it takes you by the hand and gets you to do it. You can access it online like I'm doing today, or you can download the resources. So if you have problems with connectivity or you're in a remote area, this is something you can use. Usually, I like to open, this keeps opening, that's okay, the slides from directly from the Experience AI site. And the reason that I like to do this is that I don't need to remember where I store things, where they are, but most importantly, as I said before, this changes, not greatly, but there are some details that because of the partners they're working with like us, and from teachers like you, they get feedback and they tweak things. As I said before, they're meant to follow one after the other. So if you get to lesson 3 and you're following all of them and you ask this question to your students, they will know what is the answer to this. The answer is right here. Because I'm really mean, I'm not going to show you the answer. You can take a look at the lesson. But what I want to show you is that we say this is what we're going to learn, but the way that we learn about bias is not by you telling them, this is the definition of bias, this is what bias exists, but there's an activity that the kids, along with you, are going to do online where you're going to train a model that is going to make it evident that we're introducing a bias in the data that we're using to create that model. So we are bringing the bias into an activity that we're doing online. All the explanation, all the steps are here. And then at the end of the activity, the students will realize, you know what? We introduce a bias. So we have a video explaining what happened, how bias is present in AI, and then we go and embrace the explaining, the exploration, and the community working together to understand the different concepts, and we go into different areas of bias. So the cool thing is that it's explained in a way that is interactive, that is fun. So this is an example of the fundamentals. Let me show you an example of AI safety. In AI safety, you have the same idea. This one is a little bit newer. So we have the educator guide. The other part is already in the previous one. But this is the one I want to share with you something. If we're learning about your data and AI, then we have the same structure, and this is the set of slides. These ones of AI and safety, they have always a video, they have several activities that can be done by the group, and then they recommend to do a discussion of what we saw in the video plus the activities. The way that I like to do it, I have the discussion to see what do we know about data and AI. So we're priming our students to understand. Usually I show them the video, we do one or two of the activities, and we have a closing session where we talk about what happened. I want to show you this video for you to see what this is about. What are the videos that will be presented? Let me press play, make it big.
Artificial intelligence is powering systems all around you, and data created by people is what drives this new technology. It's more important than ever to make smart choices about how to use and share information. There are ways to keep information safe. If someone decides to trust a company with their data, they expect the company to use it responsibly. This is nothing new. So how should AI systems change the way you think about data privacy? AI systems work differently to software people might be used to, and use data in new ways. Traditional software uses a rules-based approach, which involves using logic carefully designed by a programmer. Data goes into the program, and the rules define how it is processed to arrive at the output. Newer AI systems use a completely different data-driven approach, training a model with loads of example data. Instead of following rules, the model detects patterns in the data and repeats them. When a user scrolls through social media, the platform uses a model that has been trained using data about videos and the users watching them. That model generates a feed using data about the user, like their age, gender, and country, as well as content they have watched and engaged with in the past. Every time the user watches a new video, the platform has more data to make better recommendations. You might want to consider where the data used to create the model came from, and whether users agreed for it to be used that way. For example, the pictures or videos someone shares online. How would they feel if an AI model generated a picture that looked just like them because their data had been used to create it? A platform might get data about how users interact with a model. When someone supplies data as the input to a model, it should be clear what happens to it afterwards. Companies should present users with choices about the ways they use data. Using the powers available to you, check the privacy settings of a platform you are using. Make sure you are happy with how your data is shared and used. Protect yourself by thinking carefully before sharing information. Check your profiles and your settings. Decide whether the benefits of a tool are worth it. You can always find alternatives if you're not happy with a platform's policies. Think about the data-driven systems you already use. What data are you providing them with, and how do you think it is shaping the output? What data privacy choices will you make in an AI-powered world?
So the videos for each one of the lessons, there's one. As you saw, they're short and they seem to teach a lot. In truth, they're providing a lot of information. And it's one of those things that makes us go, oh, yeah, sure, sure. And at the end, if I ask you, what did we learn? It's challenging. There's too much information. But the key to the videos is that then there are different activities. And I want to show you one that I really, really liked. And I did this with my daughter to see what she thinks. She's 13. So I wanted to know if she's thinking about these ideas. Let me present the slide deck. And the idea is called Data Detective. The idea is to do it in groups of two, three, or more people. And we're going to think about data. The idea is to consider, are we sharing our personal data or the way that we use the devices? How are we using that? How does this relate to the video we saw? The example they provide is this. They said, we're going to meet Aya. Aya is this fictitious character, and she's at a cafe with a friend having a milkshake. The milkshake looks great. Then she wants to share it with her friends on her social media. And we have a fictitious also company called Buzzworthy, and she takes a photo and shares the image. You might see that this looks like most of our social media applications. Then what happens is after some time, she starts seeing more ads for local cafes in her city and also an advertisement for milkshakes. Why is this happening? And then when you ask this question to kids, it might feel like of course I was watching something like that, so of course I'm going to see this. But why is this happening? This is the part I like the most, is that there's a spreadsheet that, no spreadsheet, a document with terms and conditions. And let's be honest, all of us, terms and conditions are the most terrifying thing that we always find. Therefore, we ignore them. We click yes, just give me what I want. I don't want to read all these things, but we're forcing our student to read terms and conditions. The beauty is these terms and conditions, they're not full of legal concepts and ideas, and they create a space that is very easy to find information, and the information and the terms and conditions is very succinct itself. And what they need to do is to identify what is the personal data we're sharing with Buzzworthy, what is the usage data we're sharing with the company, what AI systems are being used, and can this data be accessed by somebody else that is not the social media application I'm sharing it with? Then we go through the process, and this is how we look at the end. They get to find all this, and when I was doing this with my daughter, she started saying, but why do they want this? Why do they want this? Why do they want this? And then we have that conversation. This makes sense, this doesn't make sense. The idea is not to impose, but is to present knowledge, ways for the team to know what do they want to do after. Do I want to keep sharing everything because I want great recommendations? I don't care what they get. Or do I adjust my privacy settings? Or do I limit my data sharing? This one, I found it a non-negotiable with my daughter. This maybe I'm older. This is the one that maybe I'm older. No, I'm way older, but this is the one that works for me. But for her, she was debating with some things here or some things here. So it's very important to see the perspective from the student's point of view. So that's kind of the tool. That's the idea. That's how the materials look. Now let's take a look at alignment. The framework we saw before, how can we align this material? If we think about human-centric, critical judgment and autonomy, or critical thinking and autonomy and human-centric, there are lessons such as what is AI, AI safety, large language models, and inherit in most of the other lessons that this is specifically and explicitly presented. So this is going to help you understand how to present information to your students while keeping those guidelines in mind. And we have examples here to experiment. We saw some of them. If I click, this is going to open some of the ideas. How do we keep it human-centric if we're talking about LLMs? Is that we can use this slide as part of one of the activities. Think that AI is like a friend that you're going to ask for help with your homework. This is what you know about your friend. You know that your friend sometimes is right, sometimes is completely wrong, sometimes in between. And always your friend is very confident that they're right. I'm sure you know someone like this. Maybe you're someone like this. Maybe I'm someone like this. But the issue is that we never know if they're right or wrong by the way they're expressing things. Will you use this information to do your homework then? This, when presented to a student, it creates a very clear parallel of what we're doing with AI. So that's the type of links that I tried to add here. And then a sentence trying to summarize everything is that the material helps teach AI doing collaborative work. There are tons of activities. Every single lesson has at least two activities that are meant to be done in group, either small groups or the whole classroom. Building community and promoting engagement because they're fun. There are some in the AI part that they're games. They're like a escape room type of game, but then you're navigating through these levels. And it helps cultivate critical thinking. If we go to the pedagogical relevance that we saw before, we have the educator graph and all of them. This is something that I said I need to put one or two, but it's all of them. We have all these ideas present. And one thing that I want also share is that I included here something that we had one of our pedagogical experts that we contracted to do this tie-in of the lessons with specific subjects within the Quebec curriculum. So this is in the slides. You're going to have access to that part. Key part is that this is for non-technical. Anybody can deliver these things. As you saw, there's enough material to guide you into sport, and we're here to answer your questions anytime you need. Ethical principles, everything in AI is safety. What is AI? Bias helps us think about who owns an image that was created with AI, who owns the material that was used to create this, and how can we think about it. We have examples of specific slides and moments within the program that you can experience that. And it tries to promote, and I think it does it very well, it promotes mindful AI education with research that, as I told you before, it was deeply and very well done, and it provides information gathered by partners that is supporting this day by day. Legal obligations, everything in AI and safety. The three of them, they tackle directly things of what we're doing. How do we interpret? How do we act about media that we receive? How we amplify it? How are we responsible for the things? If you start thinking about the video we saw, what happens if we take a photo of someone and then that someone is used to train the AI and then an image is created that looks like that someone? What are the legal obligations and ramifications there? And the last thing I want to show you before we have a small Q&A and then we move along because you've been very quiet. I see you still there, so I know you're there, is educator feedback that we've been running with different teachers that have been implemented in different boards is, and I picked two things, the overall impact and learning objectives. The overall impact, I have one educator said the lessons have fostered deep thinking in students regardless of the specific concept and context. And this is a key part. AI is a meta science. So in a way is where we say, how can we include a search using a search engine into the curriculum? There can be specific things within computer science and we can pick and choose, but in general, it's a meta science. It's a tool that can help or be introduced and support everything. Students are actively engaging with the material, evidenced by team working longer and harder on the tasks. This is something that was very interesting that she saw with her students, is that there were many groups that wanted to stay a little bit longer, to see a little bit more. Uh, More ideas on impact and objectives achieved, the emphasis on critical thinking, discussion, and exploration within the lessons aligns with achieving learning objectives that go beyond simple memorization. A key part that we all want to embrace. We don't want to memorize things, we want to understand, we want to be able to think about the processes and take advantage of opportunities and solve problems. I really like what Quebec has done by providing these guidelines for school teachers and students. I think it puts Quebec in a really good position. I really want something like this for Ontario. I will be very happy to have them to support the teachers here. And I think that the resources that I'm sharing with you and in the slides and what we saw today helps that process. They align very well with what the province expects to be done in the classrooms, and I hope that this helps you. As always, the survey form, I won't bug you with this right now. I'll put it in the chat shortly. Actually, you know what? I'm going to copy the link in the chat and I'll put it there. Just if somebody feels inspired, let's do this now, I'll be happy to do so. And I'm adding also extra resources, things we can offer. And most importantly, I'm here to help any moment. I know I went over many things today, but tomorrow you say, Herman said this. Can he help me with this? Just reach out. We have a small chat and I'll be happy to support. Let me stop sharing so we can talk a little bit and see if anybody has comments, questions, or do we dive in with the exciting things that Chris has for us?
Well, thank you, Yaman. This is wonderful. Yeah, so Raspberry Pi Foundation is based out of the UK, and they do have a lot of free resources and a lot of very well-trained curriculum people that have built all these type of resources. It always does sound daunting, but they do have support. They do realize that, you know, exploring this on your own does take some support. Thank you for putting the survey into the chat, because I do have my own survey to put at the end of this whole session, so it makes sense to bookend it on the end of yours. I don't know if anyone needs to take a little moment before we start with Chris. Does anyone have a reflection they want to pop in now, or wait till the end when we hear the rest? Anyone's welcome to ask. I love the way it's structured. I think, you know, they do an excellent job of really building out these lessons. I know it's a little different not to explore it on your own, but I think all those resources you'll find in the slide deck, so you can take some time. I don't know, Chris, if you have a reflection for us about how this might connect to the QEP. Is that something you're going to be thinking about or talking about?
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that because the Quebec situation right now is kind of in flux with how AI is being integrated. Um, so we're going to get into a little of the details of, because there are restrictions on what we can use, what we can't use. Um, so yeah, those are important conversations we have to have for sure. But I like the way that Elmel went into our documentation. The document he showed you is only translated it's in French, but we put pressure on the ministry and they're now translating into English because it is very technical terms as well. Like, so it's hard for an Anglophone to understand all these terms. So we are in the process. We put a request in, then we put a demand in, and they finally said yes. So that whole they call it in French des balises. I guess it's envelopes or suitcases or something like that. Of all these different, you know, ethical, pedagogical reflections that teachers and support staff need to know in the educational realm of
That
things.
makes me very happy, Chris, because the translation that I did with AI was miserable.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
the same, and it was like, hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
yeah.
what I'm understanding, I guess you're going to get into it now, is like you're saying it's a requirement or is the suggestion to have this AI in your classroom?
Well, right now, the situation that holds is kids are not allowed to touch AI. Okay, they're not allowed to use generative AI in class. Um, they've put a moratorium on not having any kids touching AI yet. So the story, I'll give you a history of it. Quebec opened the doors. This balise came out, which Hermé alluded to, which I will show you a little bit more, that said, yeah, go ahead and experiment, try things out. Age restrictions already existed on the platforms, like ChatGPT is 13 plus. Copilot also is 14. Like, so there's these ages of what students are allowed to use it. So until those get a little bit more clarified, they really don't want to have student input in there. Because again, what you put in stays in. So they want to be very careful about kid security. So this is kind of what pumped the brakes on integrating AI. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about how you guys can use it because you're allowed. Every school board has um, suggested or said that you can use either, if you're a Microsoft, you can use Copilot, and again, Google, you'd use Gemini. Those have been authorized for most of the Anglo school boards across the province. However, you can't let kids play in AI. So they can't use ChatGPT. They can't go and generate anything with it, which kind of bites. But one of the good things that Hermé introduced was these conversations that need to happen with kids. We missed the boat on social media. I'll tell you that straight out. Social media took over our kids and we were not responsive, which caused this cell phone ban that's coming in September because kids were using their cells all the time in class, distractions, mental health problems were happening, the online social media aspects. So all of that has been like kind of prompting a lot of this stuff of mental health and also taking care of our kids. And we just didn't do such a good job when social media came in. So they're being super cautious with AI, overly cautious, some would say. So we'll talk about how you can use it for now and how you can start having those conversations with the students because it is important. We have to make sure we stay ahead of the curve so that this tool doesn't become seen as in education as we're going to ban it. Because similarly, technology is kind of getting squeezed out because of the way that we don't use it or don't use it in a way that's beneficial for kids. So we'll talk about all that. But that's kind of the setting up of what my presentation is about. So what Hermé showed you is perfect for your students. You can introduce all that stuff, encourage teachers to talk about it. It's this thing again, it's like everyone's job and nobody's job because we operate in subject areas, but it's very, very important because it does affect all subject areas and it affects all kids. And these kids will not escape it once they graduate. There's just no way. This is here to stay and it's only going to get more and more. So if we can stay ahead of that curve and understand what it does, I think the more power for us and the more power for our kids. So in the end, that's kind of the focus that I'm going to take. And we're going to get you guys using stuff as well. So I want you guys to have your, what do they say in French? Les mains sur les touches. So if you do have a computer, you can use your cell as well because AI works on cell. Just have your phone or a computer because I am going to get you guys to do stuff in AI to show you some of the things that it can do really, really well. Should we just get this party started?
Yes.
All right, let me share my screen. And I'll go into slideshow mode. So we've been doing a lot of these presentations with teachers, and our angle has been exactly that. The way I just described it to you guys is that we're just not allowed having it in kids' hands right now. The ministry was fine with it of education, but then the cybersecurity ministry, which is a new arm of that sits above the Ministry of Education, came in and said, whoa, no way. Because people were starting to input student information and say, okay, correct this paper. And that was a big problem for for the system because they were putting personal information about the kid into AI. Now, legality wise, the parents own everything that the kids produce in school until the age of 16. So anything they make, create, write, draw, belongs to the parents until they're 16 years of age. And then because they become legal, they can take it. So keep that in mind when sharing stuff in AI, right? We really want to remove all identifiers. We don't want names in there. We don't want dates. We definitely don't want my credit card. We have to keep it clean, because it will keep it and could use it. And we want to make sure that the kids are safe. So what we're going to do today, that QR is there. I am going to send this to Danielle and she can send it out to you. So if you don't get it, don't worry, you will get it eventually. So we're going to look at some strategies and tips for you guys to use AI in the educational environment to help your lives flow better. Now, I'll introduce myself. I go ahead of myself. My name's Chris. I work with Danielle at Learn. She's on the community outreach. I'm in the pedagogical side. So it's such a hot topic right now, AI, obviously. So we've been doing a lot of presentations of how teachers and support of the educational system can actually start using AI. So what we're going to do is we'll do a quick overview of what AI is, and I'm actually going to get you to do something to get you to understand how AI works. We're going to look at a couple of the things again from the balise. Some of the things that Armand touched on, I won't, but I will supplement some of the things that he talked about already. And then a lot of this is tweaking and fortifying. We use this term, it came from a critical thinking of Garfield Jenny Newman, who's been kind of in our system here in Quebec for the last year or so, talking about critical thinking. And a lot of it is simply just kind of having what we have and tweaking it and just enhancing it a little bit with the help of machine learning. So your challenge for today in this hour that we have together is I want you to leave with one new idea or strategy related to AI. Okay, that's your challenge today, is that you leave with something that you might want to explore a little bit further. I'm throwing seeds out today. You're going to water them. It'll be up to you to do that. Now, let's start with a little icebreaker. And I want you guys to participate. This is like a win-loser, like Pictionary. Okay, so we're going to first, I'm going to stop this because I don't need it right yet. We're going to first look at person to person, right? Win, lose, or draw. I show you a word. You guys are going to draw it out on a piece of paper. And one thing I want you to take note of is how long it takes you to draw it, okay? You're going to draw the thing as quickly as you can, and then I want you to hold it up to the camera so that we can all kind of see all the different drawings that you're creating. I am going to take note of the time of how quick it is for you to put the first image up. And we're going to kind of do an average of how long it takes you guys to guess. All right. So you're all going to be drawing. And then when you're done with your image, you're just going to hold it up to the camera. Okay. And I'll take note of the time. Okay. So this is human to human example. Are we all ready for our first word? All right. So our first word is, oh, wait, let me take my screen thing off because it's going to mess it all up. Sorry about that. Just a quick adjustment here. We're going to take that and let's just turn this off. Okay, here's my first word. Okay, go. Okay, draw that out. As soon as you're ready, just hold it up in front of the screen. Nice. Excellent. Excellent. That was fast. You guys are pretty quick here. Nice. That's a good one, Danielle. Nice, guys. Cool. All right. Excellent. All very nice cars. You probably would have gotten a guess at that within 5-6 seconds. Okay, we'll say. Let's try another word. Okay, here's word number 2. Okay, go. Okay, and again, nice. Okay, that was like 5 seconds. 6, 7. Cool. All right, definitely under 10 seconds. That's for sure. Excellent. And we'll do one more just for reinforcement. It's a little bit trickier. Maybe. Okay, go. Excellent. Nice. Nice. Cool. Right on.
Is it okay that I turn my car into a tank?
Yes, please. Yes. The addition. Excellent. All right. So I'm going to say on average, it took us about 10 seconds-ish to guess what the word was that I put up. All right, human to human. This is a good activity you can do as kids as well, because they're not really touching any AI. They're not inputting anything. So the next thing I want you to do is we're going to go computer to human now. All right. I want you to go and click on Quick Draw. If you type that in the Google Quick Draw, it'll pop up as your first link, and it will look like this once you get there. And you can all do this individually. Okay, so hop on your computer or your handheld. It'll work as long as you have internet connection. And I want you to load this up. Okay, just load it up. So Quick Draw is a really fun tool. It's been around for a while. It relies on AI to help it determine what the image is. All right. So what you're going to do is in a minute, you're going to hit Let's Draw, and it's going to start showing you words. And then a blank screen is going to come up, and you're going to draw with your mouse, or if you have your finger for your handheld, what the image is. It's going to show you 5 or 6, something like that. Okay. It gives you 20 seconds to guess. If it can't figure out what you're drawing after 20 seconds, it moves on to the next. All right. So once you get to the end, just wait there. Don't turn your screen off. So what I'm going to do is I'll draw along with you guys. You guys can go ahead and turn your volume on because it's hilarious. All right, handbag. And I'm trying this with a mouse.
So go.
Or triangle. Oh, I know. It's handbag.
Nice. Ooh, tiger.
Oh, I know. It's banana. I see line, or garden hose, or arrow, or toothbrush. I see trumpet, or rhinoceros, or cow, or
I see
dog.
circle, or square, or baseball, or backpack.
I'm not
I
sure
see
what that is.
basketball. It's onion.
I see bat. I see cat. Oh, I know. It's
I
tiger.
see tree, or banana.
All right.
I see watermelon.
I see circle, or hula hoop, or blueberry, or drum. I see shoe, or motorcycle, or scissors, or comet. Oh, I know. It's binoculars.
Nice.
I see hot tub, or drum, or banana, or necklace, or moustache. I see
Oh, I
moon.
know. It's
Sorry,
cock.
I couldn't guess it. I see hat, or bun. Oh, I know.
I see
It's
circle,
saucer.
or blueberry. I see potato. I see clock.
I see circle, or blueberry, or apple.
Oh, I know. It's
Oh, I know.
compass.
It's helicopter.
Wow.
I see circle.
Right
Or
to
music
the
notes,
end.
or trousers. Oh, I know. It's
I see
ketchup.
cannon, or skateboard. Oh, I know. It's scissors.
There we go. Okay, so once you get to that page, just hang there for a sec. Give a couple of seconds here for you guys. I just find the wording too, like it as it guesses, it's saying the words to you. I just find it hilarious. It's a tiger. No, it's a cat. No, it's a dog. It's like, so it's quite interesting. That tiger was a tricky one because a lot of the bodies are the same. It's still, it only figured out once I started putting those stripes. So basically what it's doing is it's gathering an inventory of all these drawings from people that participate. Okay, so users, us, we input all these pictures, and I'll show you how it works. So choose any of the pictures you want that you drew. I'm going to go to tiger because I'm interested in, and now it starts to show you, you can see the onion skin behind the tiger that I drew and what it's comparing it to. And then if you scroll down more, you can see all these drawings that the users generated to help train the model to guess. So this is the idea of how AI works, is that it is generating guesses based on the information it has access to. So ChatGPT, Copilot, they all work the same way. It's predicting what your keystrokes are drawing. Okay, and you can look at all of your drawings. You can see that they all have different, right? But it has all this different inventory to base its guess on, which is pretty amazing. So some of them, for example, the handbag, it guessed it in 2 seconds, right? It just knows right away. Soon as I start, you know, you can see that here's the picture I drew. Here's another one. So it has this inventory of guesses that it's going to use. So when I do this with the kids, first they go head to head, right? One will draw, the other will guess. We look at the time, how long it takes. You guys were about 10 seconds-ish. My best one was 2 seconds on quick draw. So some of them go really quick, and others you've got to like really like flush it out a little bit more. But it's cool for, I like this end part where we can actually go and see all the cups that were drawn, right? So, I mean, this is just a fraction of them, but it gives you an idea of all the different styles of cups that were drawn. You should play with this, your kids. They love this stuff. It's really fun for them. And then showing them at the end how it figures out what it is really fun to show them as well, that it's not magic. It's data. And that's what it uses. All right. So just as a quick example of AI and how it creates stuff. Now, Hermès said something pretty interesting before, that why aren't we getting paid for all the stuff that we're feeding into AI, right? Because eventually they're going to charge us for all the information we already inputted. So we make the AI language models smarter through our queries and through our requests and what we put in, which I find pretty fascinating that it has that power to do that. So there's our little icebreaker to get our brains thinking a little bit. So what is AI really? So we just kind of experience how those models are created, right? How they generate based on information that it has access to. AI doesn't think, it doesn't feel, it has no emotion. It's a machine, but it wants to please you. So it will generate whatever it can, however it can, so that it gives you some kind of answer. Now, sometimes the answers are full of illusions and it's kind of like confused, but it still wants to give you something. The other times you can get something pretty accurate. Now, how do I get from something that's not giving me what I want to what it's getting me? Well, we're going to look at how we can use some of those strategies and techniques to help us use AI more effectively. The functions of it are in a plethora of different ways. But my question to you is, if anybody would like to answer, quick draw, what kind of AI is it? Do you think it's prediction, detection, identification, content, generate content, or decision-making planning? What do you think that it would most likely align with in what function it did? So we want to take a guess?
Prediction?
Say again?
I'll go with prediction.
Lots of prediction. Yep. So it's predicting what our lines are saying, right? And that, again, based on data that we're feeding it. So prediction also is, we've been using these in our lives for a long time. We just aren't aware of it. But prediction is all of our media, where it just knows, oh, we recommend that you watch this movie because you watch this one, and this one, right? So again, the prediction happens already in a lot of the platforms that we use daily. Detection as well. Now, detection is, it can recognize your face, it can recognize your movements, it knows where your nose is, it knows where your ears are, so it can kind of detect who you are, where you are. Interesting stuff. Identification as well, like on our phones to get in, right? Our phones now become our unlocking of. Again, those are identification ones. It can identify your voice as well. So it has that capacity as well. Generate content, that's one big one for education, because you can generate a lot of stuff using AI. There's a lot of generative AI stuff too, so it kind of generates stuff. That's kind of the one where we're not letting kids touch yet, the generative, because oftentimes you have to personalize things, or it's just we're not there yet ethically as well. Like if I go and say, I want you to create me an image a la Picasso, I mean, it's going to do it, but where is it getting all that stuff from? And is that stuff copyright? Am I allowed to go and use that and then manipulate it and generate something new? Again, these are a lot of questions that we don't have answers to, but people are questioning the ethical use. And are we allowed to just go take whatever we want? And then our famous maps, for example. I mean, I don't know what I did before maps. Like, I must have had a paper in traveling to schools and stuff. Like, anyway, now I don't live without it. I don't go anywhere. I don't go to the corner store without turning maps on. Just, where's the quickest way? Where's the traffic, etc. So all of these are different kinds of ways of functioning with AI that it can do. And they're only getting more and more as the days go by. It's getting more and more powerful tools. It's not going to slow down. So if we don't catch up, we get left behind, and that's never fun. Next, we're going to look a little bit about the capacities. Now, one thing I want to say to you guys is that check with your school board tech team, consultant on RECI, what are you allowed to use and what are you not allowed to use? Every school board is different, but I want to put this warning in there that some schools have locked down everything and you have access to one agent. Others are saying go and experiment. They're all at different stages because what they have to do now is, because of that cybersecurity shutdown that happened, they want a procedure of how you evaluate AI stuff. What's it going to be used for? Who's going to use it? What's the cost of it? Right? Because all of these things cost money, and they don't want to overwhelm the system with buying all these different things of Magic School and Ed AI and all those kind of money ones. So that's why they're kind of putting a hold on. So I do recommend that you go and talk to your board people, the tech people, of what you're allowed and not allowed to use. And particularly with students, if you're involved with working with students directly. Now, it generates, like I said before, it loves to please, so it will always create something for you. But can I make it better? Yes. Just remember that it generates stuff, it does not create. It is a generation machine, which means it will take stuff from all over the place and recreate something for you based on the prompt that you give it. So oftentimes we get confused with the generation versus create. It is not a creative being. It only goes on prediction and what it thinks you want to hear based on what you've already inputted. All right. Getting started with your journey. Now, again, I'm putting a lot of warnings in there because I want to speak gently about, because we're still in flux as to what can be used and what can't be used. Copilot is 18 plus, but a lot of the time it's open at our school boards. They just don't shut it off. So kids do have access to it. But keep that in mind that there are age restrictions on these chatbots. That's why it's the best thing to do is have that conversation with your tech people. But to start your journey and to kind of look at how can I start to move along this timeline of AI, well, here's some suggestions that we give to you. First, start planning your route. Learn how it works. How does generative AI work? And am I going to use it in an ethical way or not? Right? You got to think about, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. And what tools do I have at my board that I can use that have been authorized by the powers that be? Start test driving. I like calling this kicking the tires. How does it work? If I input something and it generates something, do I leave it at that? Or can I go further, deeper down the rabbit hole? Now, some of the research on prompts has said that your first prompt is kind of a toss-off, meaning that it won't generate exactly what you want. It kind of starts to set the stage. Your second prompt, which in the same kind of chat, goes a bit further, and your third even deeper. They're saying third, fourth searches or queries, you end up getting much closer to what you want. So it's not just like Google where you go in and you type, yeah, give me blah, 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 and it spits it out. This is a conversation kind of that you're having with the machine to get closer to what you want in your search. So test driving is really cool, and recommending just do a variety of personal interests. Say you love to cook, go look in your fridge and say, okay, I've got ground beef, I have a tomato, and I have a block of cheese. What recipes do you recommend? It's kind of fun to see. Or I I'm going to Quebec City for the weekend. Can you give me a travel itinerary? Where should we go? Where should we stop? And it just produces all of that plus the links and everything. So I would suggest trying some personal prompts and really push it. Think outside the box. So there's so many different things that you can prompt it to do. Then start thinking about your professional role. How, with your teacher educator hat on, how can I start integrating AI a little bit into the practice that I'm doing without obviously not respecting the board's encadrement or their preferred uses. Again, that's something you'll check, but how can I push this now into my professional role? So it's easy to start personally because we have all of our personal interests, things that we like, we know a lot about. Push it, see if it's accurate or not too. Does it get more accurate the more prompting I give? And then invite some passengers. Now, there's nothing that says that you can't use AI with your kids on a smartboard or on a screen, right? And it's really fun to throw open generative, like one of the chats and have the kids kind of talk with you about something that you can create. Image generation is really fun too, like just so that they start to see the power of it. I would complement that with a lot of the resources that Elman shared as well, where those conversations are being had, and then you can go and demo some stuff. So I know a lot of teachers like to do the demoing so that the kids don't touch the AI, and that seems to be fine, no problem. School boards don't mind that. So you got to experiment. You got to try it out. It's the only way you're going to learn about it. So there's a little bit of a process for you to go through. Now, what do we need to think about? This is as much for your students as it is for you. Like I said, this is just in French right now, which was not cool. So Learn pushed the ministry to translate it because it is a document that is provincial wide and they want people to understand it. So it's going to be out in probably by the end of this June, probably June sometime it will come out in English, which is great. Apparently it's already translated. They're just getting it verified by the powers that be. It lays out three things: pedagogy, ethics, and legality, similar to what Elme presented. So I'm going to go over this pretty quickly. One of the things I wanted to show is how it connects to our pedagogy, to our curriculum. And there's a couple of ways that you can integrate it easily. First off, it is a requirement for professionals' competencies, which means they encourage you. It's a part of the core foundation of teacher professionalism, that you know how it works and that you could talk to it and that you can help students navigate through it through the knowledge that you have. That is in the teacher competencies, which is the far left. In the middle, we have our digital competencies. And again, these are provincial wide. And these are not only for students, but also for educators. So all the professionals in the building should follow this digital competency as well. And AI fits super well in technical skills, which embody all the 12 dimensions. So this is considered one competency, this whole circle. And each of those are dimensions within it that we already do. I'm sure that if you're a teacher, you've done critical thinking, you've done problem solving, you've done, how do I make things diverse, inclusive, differentiation, etc. So all of these we're already doing. It's just the awareness of that these are something that we're responsible for spreading across to our kids and ourselves. And if you look at some of the elements about AI that the government is starting to come out with, they want us to understand it, the impact on society. They want to be at the forefront of this, which is confusing that they threw a spoke in the tire, but they want to be leading AI across the province. Will they get there? We shall see. Now, if we look at pedagogy a little bit, all of this, again, I'll share with you. This is some of this. There's so many different models out there for prompting. Okay, and prompting is really important because that's the crux of how AI works, is how do we get it to do what I want it to do? So the prompts, actually, I'm going to share with you. I generated a bunch for support at schools. This is a Padlet I'll show you in a minute, but I wanted to show you a couple of prompt examples. So what I asked it is, I was like, I would like some prompts for community development agents in Quebec. And I said, I want you to generate ideas that are based around Quebec culture, society, etc., right? And also community, because oftentimes your work is connecting school to community together. So I generated a ton of prompts that are available for you to look at, but they're really pretty good, some of them. And at least they give us some ideas of where could we start to get prompt these? Like, what are some of the things we can ask it? And you're going to do some of that in a second. So that's on the Padlet, which I'll show you in a minute. We'll come back to that. But for example, and I think this fits with what you guys.
Are you trying to share a screen? We're not seeing anything, eh?
Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. So prompting, you'll see, oh, that's our challenge. So some of them is example, I'll give you a couple of educational ones to start, and then there's some
Sorry,
community.
Chris, to interrupt, just to go back, we didn't see the Padlet. Were you trying to show us a Padlet?
Oh, yes, but I'll show it in a minute. I
Okay.
actually have it on the next slide. So, for example, I can brainstorm lessons based on the POLs, right? Or progressions of learning. I could type in a POL and say, okay, I need an icebreaker around this POL, and it will produce stuff. It might prompt you also, well, going further. Do you want me to turn this into a PDF? Should I add more stuff? Do you want an image generated from it? So it will prompt you with all the things it can do with your prompt, which is pretty cool. It can help you curriculum mapping. One of the big things teachers like about it, is this differentiation. Now, differentiation is our pedagogical flexibility of how we have inclusive classrooms in Quebec. So how can we make sure that we connect to all the kids that are in my class? And that's a big challenge for teachers, is how do I differentiate level? With AI, I can take a text that I've had, I can upload it into AI, and I can say, create 3 different reading levels for this text, and it will produce those. So it really can help you with that differentiation of making sure that all students feel like they're a part of the class. Some of the more practical ones, maybe for the CLC agents, is what kinds of after school programs could I help coordinate for students facing food insecurity or needing academic support? Example. That's a huge question. It would generate some ideas, kind of a brainstorming, and then you could pick and choose from it. You're going to try this in a minute. Another one. What are some inclusive strategies I can use to increase family involvement in school events? It'll produce some results for you. It'll give you some ideas. It might produce an idea that you want to zone in on a little bit more. There's your second prompt. Okay, I like this one piece from that first one. Can you develop that a little bit more? So again, it will kind of show you an overview, and then it can mince it down to something that's more accurate for you. Now, what I want you guys to do, okay, and I know we have a group, you guys can kind of work together, but I want you guys to go through this process. I'm only going to give you about 5 minutes to play around. So what I want you to do is I want you to try to use AI as an assistant in your job. Okay, so you're going to use it as an assistant. And I'm giving you a couple of suggestions, but if you have another one that you would really like to explore, go for it. Okay, it's up to you, but I want you to kind of think about some of these kinds of things. So the first one is generate a 45-minute lesson plan for a grade 5 science class on blah, blah, blah. Okay, you decide, or it could be math or whatever, subject area, grade level, you can decide. Another suggestion, suggest 3 ways to build partnerships between our school, local organizations to help support student well-being. You can change that to student autonomy, student resilience, whatever you want. You can decide. But again, what are some ways that I can start that brainstorming process to generate ideas for myself? How can I help school recognize and celebrate Indigenous culture in a meaningful way year-round? Example. Okay, and again, it will help produce some of those results. So what I want you to do is take 5, 6 minutes, 7 minutes. If you have Copilot access to, I recommend use it, log in so that it saves your query, because if you're not logged in, it disappears. If you have Gemini, log in, use it, because we're going to do something after with these search results. Okay, we're going to push it one step further. So choose what platform you want. If you don't have access to any of them, you can choose whichever one you want. It's up to you. Logging in is pretty good though, because it does keep your chat query so that you can go back to it, right? Because these are like ongoing conversations like you would have on your phone with your people. So it's an exchange that lives on as long as you want it to. So if you log in, it will save it. So go ahead. I will stop talking for a bit. I would love to hear some of the results after. We'll do a little debrief on your first search. I will put the slide, I will put the Padlet, sorry guys, in the chat. And if you want to go and look at, let me just get that to you. So there's our Padlet. That has a ton of information, but in the key information, if you scroll down, it's called prompt examples in the first column. And you can refer to that as well if you want more ideas of prompts. But all of this stuff will be for you. All right, I shush. All right, so we'll kind of bring this. I like I said, I'm throwing seeds out, and hopefully a few are like starting to take root. Does anybody want to share some of the results they found, or surprises, or was there anything that you tried that was like wow?
I can say something.
I'm the school secretary, Oh, no,
Yep.
she's talking. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, you go.
Go ahead, Sarah, and we'll go back to them. Yep.
Nobody was saying anything, and then both of us went at the same time. So I asked Copilot to make me a unit plan for grade 3, which is what I teach on the Incas. And so it initially gave me some information, but then I said, like, I prompted it further to include maps and worksheets, but then everything was blank after. So I find Brisk is a little better than Copilot for like generating those kind of pieces. So that's what I did.
Cool. Yeah, Copilot's a bit limited. It's just the tool that is mainly recommended because it's a Microsoft platform and they want us to stay within. But yeah, there's tons of tools out there. And like somebody told me, like, if I go home, I can use whatever I want, right? They sometimes say, well, you can't use a computer from the school to do all that. Well, whatever. Most of us have computers that are our own. So, I mean, yeah, that's cool though. And one other thing too, Sarah, I would add on to that is you could probably add in as a pre-prompt is I'm looking at this POL, here's the theme connected to, it will go and pull that information out of the program so that it's more accurate in what you need to cover, which is pretty impressive. So it does have access to all of our program information as well. Yes, we had the over there with the 5 over in the
Hi.
north. Yeah.
I'm not a teacher. I'm a secretary. So
Yes.
I just use it to generate funny out of office responses.
Cool.
And they're awesome. I'm using them.
Cool. You know what I did is I was trying to do it here, but I asked it to create a web page on a random word generator, right? So just create random words for me. But then I asked it, well, what's your foundation for building these words? Which I found really interesting because it told me about the consonants and how it matches up. But then it started putting words together with a Q, but no U after it. And I was like, always when you use Q, put a U after it. So you can train it also to figure out more accurately. And then I said, okay, I want to attach an audio to each of them. So each of the words, I want you to have the audio file that I can click on and hear the word. And then I pushed it even further. I said, incorporate it into a sentence, each word into a sentence. So it would take these random words that it generated and try to plug them into a sentence, which is hilarious. So basically my point to this is that you can use it in super creative ways to generate anything that you do on your computer. Which brings me to one of the things I wanted to say is 80-20. 80-20. Keep that ratio in your mind. So 80 is AI. AI can do 80% of these administrative tasks that we take care of all the time that take a lot of our time. AI can do 80% of that. The 20% is our professional judgment and our looking at what it generates to make sure it's accurate or not. You can always prompt in any query, where are your sources for this? Show me where you're getting this information, and it will link the sites so that you know if it's hallucinating or not. So remember that ratio is super important, that 80%, no problem. AI is really powerful in doing complex tasks really fast. But I am responsible for what it produces if I put it out there. So having it generate something and then copying it and pasting it and sending it out, we don't recommend, just because you need to have that professional judgment in play because it sometimes is not accurate. Which brings us to our next. Yes, Daniel.
Can I ask you a question? Would you mind sharing the Padlet and just giving us a little talk about it? Because not everyone's sitting at the computer looking at the link you put in the chat. So just quick introduction to what that is.
Yep. All right. So here's the Padlet. It's in the chat. We'll send it to you anyway, so that if you want it, you have it. But on here, basically, we have student stuff, we have teacher stuff, and we have some things that we recommend you kind of think about. All right. So reflection. We created this one pager, which is really good, and it's a good starting place if you're just starting with AI. It kind of gives you the overview. some of the things it can do. A lot of the stuff that we talked about or we're talking about today, you'll find on this one pager. That's on the Padlet. It's also on our DCA, which I'll show you after. And then here it is. We have a digital action, competency in action. So this is our kind of tech hat at Learn. And we have a whole section on what AI is and some of the webinars we've done. Hermé is on one of these that he did for us on AI. So all of these you have access to, and they all come with resources as well as the webinars. So you're free to view any of those. But we looked at it as what it is. What do I need to think about? How can I use it to plan and prep? And how can I teach students about it? Okay, so those are our sections for now. And as things open up where we can have kids actually interacting with AI, things will evolve. But for now, we're just looking at how we can talk to students about it. Okay, so that's a whole section, and that's also in the Padlet, which you'll have access to. Here's the second column is lessons for kids. So they don't need to touch AI. It's more conversational and things that they can do with their hands paper-wise. Okay, so they're not interacting. And then there's also Common Sense Media, which has a ton of great resources. And also CCQ, the new program, there's tons of stuff out there, lesson plans for CCQ that touch on a lot of these subjects. So the resources are there for sure. We also put a few things on the ethical use, which we'll get into a bit. Also, AI and assessment. Again, like educational things that we need to think about are here. And this one's pretty good too. Teachers often ask, how can I cheat proof my lessons or AI proof them? These are great tips. Again, we looked at a bunch of different resources and kind of brought them all together. But these strategies allow kids to use AI, but also they have to have trace evidence. So it can't just be, yeah, give me an essay on William Shakespeare's Macbeth, generate. It requires process, right? So whenever you involve process or connecting it to real life or community stuff, AI is not good at, right? Because it doesn't know every community. How could it? So that is there also that you could definitely share with teachers, because that's one of their main concerns is what is some of the ways I can prevent this plagiarism from happening. And then we have two other last sections. One are AI tools. These are just some great tools that we have played with and use. And we put lesson ideas at the end of each one. So you can kind of get an idea of the kinds of things you can do with these AI tools. We didn't want to forget about some of the digital tools that are out there that are really good too, like Mentimeter is, again, I won't, it's for brainstorming, collective documentation, stuff like that. Screen Pal is great for second language learning or for communicating in a different language. It's not your native language. And then we also always love Padlet. Now, Padlet just came out with an AI component as well, which is really cool. And you'll see more and more all of these organizations coming out with much more AI integration into their platforms. So there's the Padlet that you'll have access to, and I recommend just surf around, check it out. It's some good stuff. All right, I got to step on it here. So the ethical, I will let you read that for yourselves. One thing I wanted us to think about, though, is just the sheer amount of energy AI requires to function. So there are some ethical considerations that we have to think about when using AI, because it is a heavy load on our system. I put this energy consumption watt per hour chart. So you can see a normal Google search takes 0.3 megawatts or watt hours, I guess they put it in. And then you can look, if I want to do a high quality video generation of a video, look at the energy it takes, right? So it takes a lot of power to power these learning models because they're so massive, and also to keep them cool because they produce so much energy. You have to have some way to cool all this stuff down. So again, there's a lot of these topics that can be explored with students that they need to be aware of. Here are some considerations that you can think about with them. Yeah, and we've kind of touched on this. Again, it's the legality of what kids are allowed to do, not allowed to do. There are some points here, but again, I do recommend that you contact your ICT department or your information tech or your RECI rep. They will have information as to what you can use and what you can't. Legal considerations, you can see that there are now these new logos that are put out for copyright, but now for AI production, so that you can label your work appropriately. So if you generate something using AI, it's always appropriate to use these different logos to kind of situate yourself with how you used it, so there's transparency. We don't ever put personal information in. We just can't do it. I wouldn't put your personal information in either. It is not good at monitoring safety, and we can't rely on external sources to regulate everything, particularly when we have our students' identities at stake. And again, that's why this whole delay is happening, because they're being super careful that teachers are aware you cannot input student tests, documents, anything with their name on it, you cannot input into AI. One other thing too, Indigenous nations are saying or proposing that their information is not used in AI because they don't want misrepresentation. It's their history, and we want to make sure that it's represented in a nice, not nice, in the way that they want to be perceived. So keep that in mind too when you're looking for Indigenous materials, that anything that's generated from the nations, that we are very careful of how we use it and incorporate it. And obviously, always cite where you're getting this from. It only makes it more legit if you can say, yeah, I have the source for this. All right. Now, we probably don't have too much time, so this is going to be your homework, all right? So based on what you did in your first search, the next step is, well, what could I do with all this stuff other than just generating a lesson plan or ideas? Well, those are really much in, for example, generate a welcome, colorful illustration of a school hosting a family literacy night, including children reading with parents, books, warm lighting, community feel. Well, there's the image right there, right? So I put that prompt in, and this is what it. Now, I told it that we were in Quebec, so it started to generate French stuff at the same time. But that was my first generation, so I would have refined it, obviously, saying, can you put, literary night, or maybe translate the whole thing into 2 languages, so make 2 posters, etc. But again, just to show you the power of it, so I recommend that you guys go and try some of these image generation prompts. They're very useful and fun. Skills and competencies, yes. There's these debates that AI makes people less critical thinkers. There's a debate out there on that. Here's some articles that you can look at. But like I said at the start of this, how can we take what we already have and not change the whole thing? How can we tweak it and fortify it? How can I make small adjustments with the support of AI to make something more engaging for my students, or generate some more ideas for myself so that I have a better idea of where I could go with it, etc. It's really a smorgasbord, like what you can do with it. Plagiarism, we touched on a little bit. One thing that AI is horrible about is telling you if something is plagiarized or not. Because what it tends to do is it generates a number and says, yeah, I think about 60% of this is not authentic. And then what? You go and accuse a kid because the machine said 60% of it is. I think that that's a bad idea. So I encourage you to not use AI as a checker for cheating. Ask, show me your trace evidence. What sites did you look at? Where's your rough draft? Where's your brainstorm? like have them show you those structures, and it really eliminates this idea that it can be used for plagiarism. If we teach it responsibly, they'll use it responsibly. If we don't teach it, they're going to use it the way they want to use it. So it's something that we're responsible for, to get these kids ready for this future where they're going to have to be dealing with these kinds of things. I put those suggestions. There's also an article at the bottom that you can look at. Again, if we just focus on plagiarism, are we forgetting about everything else? So there's so much more that can be talked about and shared. And again, here's some suggestions, which are also in the Padlet, on how can I AI proof lessons that I want or I have to give. How can you stay up to date? Well, here are some stuff that we recommend you give a shot at. So there's the development tool on these websites. Google Labs is cool. These are all like things that they're trying that are going to be coming down the road. So they're very experimental. There's also a lot of stuff on open communities, so you can join communities where you talk a lot about AI. There's a lot of things that are exchanged. So if you want to know more, there's lots of places to go and have these conversations to further it. We put a few suggestions in there. And then if you want to push it further, there's actually an AI course that Microsoft generated for free. It's around Copilot, obviously, but it's pretty good. So there's ways that you can go and get more support. And there's our form. We'd love to hear what you think, if this is useful or not. And we have about 10 minutes so that we can do any questions that you might have. It's a lot to take in a short amount of time, but I think we've bombarded you with some information that is pertinent for you guys, and hopefully some of those seeds that we threw out can take root.
Well, one of the questions I wanted to ask when we started, and maybe we can hear from our Lower North Shore group, because there's a big bunch of you. You've stayed till the end. What is the reason you came today? What made you come, and what are you thinking about in terms of what you'd like to know next, or where you're at?
Thank you.
Brenda has a run off for lunch supervision. No, I have a remote. I can unmute. I have a lot of power. What did you come to learn about?
Is there one thing that you guys are leaving here today with that you might pursue further?
I do love the idea of, like, you going on 80-20. And I think for us as educators, it's easier we can use AI effectively because I can call bullshit on the AI. Now with students, they wouldn't be able to do that yet. So this is like a great training tool where she's like, hey, use it. And then part of it is like, you got to be able to see when it smells fishy. And if you can do that effectively, then you can use the tool effectively. Yeah.
Totally.
You have to have the literacy to evaluate it.
That's it.
I use AI for my class, my own professional development, and I find it really helpful. You have to be very careful though when you're actually using some of the material, because it's not accurate. So anybody who's trying to use it within their class for certain activities, you have to be very, very careful. It's the same as I ask it to produce assignments for me that I want the students to do. It has to be carefully edited and looked over, because there's times it's going to come up, and if it's for, say, secondary 1 or secondary 2, like some of the vocabulary is extremely difficult to understand. Half of the text they wouldn't understand. So my suggestion, if you're going to use it for that kind of thing, is to look it over. But it's an awesome tool. I haven't had the kids use it per se, but it's it's something that perhaps I'll introduce to see how they work with it.
I
Yeah.
really like your idea too of like even like I find those are teachable moments, right? Like say it generates something that's a hallucination to show that to the students so they
Yes.
start to understand how it hallucinates and how it sometimes is not accurate at all.
Mhm.
And then what do I do, right? It's a part of the CCQ program actually is verifying information online and validity and all that. So it's all a part of the curriculum. It's where do we talk about it, right? Like when do we have those opportunities? And I think showing models of your own searches is a great way to show, like our questioning. We have to question everything. We can't just take things at surface level. There has to be deeper thought.
You can throw that into media. The
Yeah,
English
totally.
language arts, because that's where I come in, and it's a
Yep.
good jumping off point, throw it in there. Okay, what's being, is this accurate? Can you actually believe this to be true? So, good,
Totally.
it's good. Thank you.
Like pictures too, right? Like you have a real picture and then you generate one and then the kids have to compare like what are my clues in there that show me that it's generated versus not. So there's lots of ways that you can bring AI into class without the kids actually touching, inputting stuff. So
Yes.
And
Thank you.
also on that line is how your prompt is influencing the answer, how the system is trying to please you and include what you asked for. It just wants to do whatever you want it to do, and then it's gonna lie for you, and it's gonna be very confident about it. So sharing those examples, as Chris said, with the kids, they're key.
Thank you for sharing. Lala, can you tell us anything you want to reflect on about today's session?
All right. So, well, as for me, I had the idea of using AI for like introducing some coding classes for my math. I mean, like not from the curriculum I have, but like trying to just uh, uh, like give them ideas about it and make them open about it. Well, because in our conversations they were like not interested at all. So I was like trying to use it to like have more of ideas and more of like finding ways to kind of introduce the concept to them.
One suggestion I give you is it's really good at also creating simulations. So you could input saying, I want you to illustrate how a Cartesian plane works, right? And it will produce a simulation that will show the students. So the power of it, like using like gizmos we use sometimes, or all those other tools that are all these simulators, you can actually create your own simulations within AI, which is super powerful. The next step is getting kids to produce their own simulations of, topics that they're trying to deal with. But math, it can work super well that way in kind of making math come alive so they see it visually rather than having all these concepts.
And in terms of coding, I mean, Make Code, Microsoft has the AI built-in lessons, and I guess also Scratch, if that's what you're talking about, Lala.
Yeah, something of that nature.
And as to what you were saying, that maybe they're not that interested, when they use the AI to create code, they're going to find a level of frustration and inspire understanding after they prompt a basic thing, because you can create something but make it exactly what you want, it gets to be really difficult, and then it's going to start taking in a different direction that forces you to, oh, I really want to make this work, let me look at the code, let me try to understand what's happening. So it's an approach to promote engagement.
Thank you. Sarah, what's your reflection as we say goodbye?
Well, I did a bit of a AI workshop, kind of a book club type thing with my school board, and a lot of kind of sparked my interest in AI and using it, making teaching easier. But I find at my school, I think I'm one of the only ones using it. Well, I pretty much use it every day. I'm wondering, my reflection is like, I'm wondering what kind of PD will be available, larger scale, for more teachers to learn how to use things like Brisk, like taking a YouTube video and telling it, hey, make me a lesson out of this. It saves so much time, and it's kind of like just me doing my own deep dive, figuring out these pieces. It would be nice knowledge to share, like, more widespread. And my other reflection was, like, kids are already talking about AI, even young kids. I teach 8 and 9-year-olds. And Chris mentioned social media, how we really, I don't know, did you say missed the boat, failed them? I'm wondering how we're gonna, follow what's happening with AI in a way that makes sense for kids, and teaching those digital competencies. Like, how are we going to shift what we're doing in education to address like the evolving landscape? So yeah, that's my reflection.
Those are big questions. And I think will happen over time. But I know, like, for example, we're looking to AI for next year and what we can offer. And we've already offered a few webinars, and we did a play day with AI, which we'll probably repeat next year. So keep your eye on Learn's offerings for next year. And if ever you guys want, more direct work, we can come and work with schools as well. Because I know that everybody's around the same spot. We do have some early adopters. Sarah, it sounds like you are. But just kind of getting that boat moving a little bit more. And the social media question is, I mean, they're answering it right now with the ban on cell phones. They know it's caused tremendous amount of harm to the kids. Particularly our girls. I mean, it's insane the stats that came out of that research. And there's a blog post coming out actually that I wrote soon on that, with full of stats on why, the justification behind it. But I think it's gonna help a lot. Anyway, more to come. More to come.
And Armand, can you give us some closing remarks?
Yeah, for sure. And I want to touch on the same thing, that we do provide training on Experience AI, different levels, and continuous support. We have also materials that are student facing. And I agree with Chris, we need to understand what the technology is. Our kids are using it despite of any regulation or any restraints that we have. We know they're interacting with it. We need to inform them in how to use it better, and for them to be inspired, motivated, and in control of what's happening. So that support is really important. And yep, thank you so much. And I hope to get in touch with some of you at some point.
Thank you both for being here. Thank you for everyone for coming today. I enjoyed it. Maybe next year we'll have a part 2. We'll see how it goes. Have a great day, everyone.